Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday afternoon to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there this afternoon. Have had yourselves a great weekend. Haven't been with you guys since Wednesday evening, I believe. I've been on vacation in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. So I certainly do apologize for not being able to do my part for my weather channel or my YouTube channel. Talking about that severe weather outbreak that ended up unfolding Friday. It certainly ended up verifying much more significant than maybe my last video talked about when we discussed it. But there's a lot of great people on YouTube that do weather that do a great job at keeping people safe. Like Ryan Hall's a huge one. And certainly, hopefully, you guys paid attention to their channels. But I'm sorry I didn't do my part. I had a comment or two that was upset that I certainly wasn't making videos. But I tried to tell you guys leading up to Wednesday and Thursday that I was going to be on vacation, but I'm certainly happy to be back with you guys and start a normal routine. Even before vacation, I was sick the week before, and it just feels like I haven't been with you guys consistently. So I don't see any headaches, any vacations in the foreseeable future. So I'm looking forward to getting a smooth, consistent run with you guys for the foreseeable future, unless sicknesses come up, which happens. That's part of life. But in this video, we're going to discuss a couple things, but 80% of the video, I would say, is going to be talking about the tropics. We have the chance for a landfalling tropical or subtropical storm that can make landfall on the eastern side of Florida, and then it could potentially turn north and affect areas along the southeast coastline, maybe a little bit further inland. There's an outside chance that this could also become a hurricane. In fact, I really wouldn't even call it an outside chance. There's certainly a decent chance. The GFS really likes the idea. So we're going to discuss that, talk about all the detailed information that we can. And then after that, we're going to talk about when are we going to have a pattern change? And we certainly are, to a much more colder pattern. It's been very warm over the last several days. I was blowing leaves after we got home from Gatlinburg, and it was very warm, very sweaty. So we're going to talk about, for you cool weather fans, when is it going to get cool again? And it is. So stay tuned for that. We'll talk a little bit on that. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. There should be timestamps in this video. Just give me about 30 minutes after I drop it. I'm going to put some timestamps in these videos, as we are definitely talking about that's something that's rather important. But if you guys got anything that I can pray about, pray over, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. So let's make sure there's not another update here, and there's not. So really the focus is on this. This could potentially be a PTC, which stands for potential tropical cyclone by the time some of you folks watch this. But the results, the model data that I'm about to show you remains the same. So don't focus too much on that. But as of right now, within the next 5 days, this has a 90% chance to develop into a depression or named storm. What does this look like right now? Well, here it is. You can see a little bit of a low-level spin down here as the sun is slowly starting to set on this. This is a huge system. So you got, what I'm about to show you, you got the GFS and the European. The European definitely is more subtropical, more of a broad system. The GFS is more of a tropical system. Therefore, it has a pretty intense inner core. Both models are showing a pretty broad or large system. So this is going to end up becoming a pretty large system, whatever it may become here. And it already is in the beginning stages of doing that. It's going to continue to chug north for a while, probably jolt north, and then get pushed back down south, where most model guidance shows that it's going to make some kind of landfall in the eastern shores of Florida. So we got to figure this out. The big ridge of high pressure is going to be a big player with this system. It's going to try to steer this system. Well, it is going to steer this system towards the U.S. I can't stress enough, this is a really uncommon scenario. We have November systems, but a lot of times they're stuck in the Caribbean and pretty far south. And that's due to the fact that when you get into November, you start to have frequent cold fronts that push these tropical systems away. But you're going to have a nice opening for this to potentially scoot towards the southeast, and most likely will. So we're going to break down the GFS, the Euro, even take a look at the Canadian, and Icon models. The latest GFS, the one that dropped a couple hours ago. So here we go. We start this off right now. And it continues to form. It's very strung out for a system. It's very broad. There's a lot of moisture with this. When this went over Puerto Rico, I believe it was last night, there was a ton of moisture with this. So with it being so broad, you're going to have some onshore wind issues and a lot of heavy rain potentially. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. So GFS continues. We're getting to Monday morning. Notice it's just got some weird erratic movement. It jolts north, and you're thinking, well, this is about to head out to sea, right? Well, the ridge builds on top of this, and I'll show you that here in a second. And as it does, there's a current around that ridge that flows like this. So this begins to push it back west towards Florida, even southwest. And it wants to drop this into a sub 990 millibar low pressure sometime Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. And I would argue that the peninsula of Florida is already seeing impacts from this. This is going to be a pretty large storm. It's already breezy. You probably already have potentially some storm surge ongoing right here with such a large system. As we're going, this will roll through the northern Bahamas, potentially. Excuse me, most likely, actually. And the GFS has this almost to a 980 millibar low pressure. Then it makes landfall as almost a 970 millibar low pressure storm. This would be a hurricane. And this would be more tropical in the form of characteristics. Remember, we're just in that time of the year where a lot of times these troughs will come and dig down, and they will switch a tropical system, and it will lose its tropical characteristics and become subtropical, extratropical, whatever you want to call it. That's what happened when it made a second landfall in the Carolinas. It lost a lot of its tropical characteristics, even though it was a hurricane. But this makes landfall in Florida right here, and as it does, rides over the peninsula. Almost looks like it's about to get back over the Gulf of Mexico as we're getting into Thursday afternoon. This makes landfall around Thursday morning. This Thursday morning, by the way, guys. And then it makes an abrupt turn as it begins to feel a weakness up here with a trough. And then brings a lot of moisture to areas of Georgia, the Carolinas. Kind of scrapes the coastline, never quite does though. And then heads on out as we get into this weekend, and the trough cold front pushes it out. The latest GFS, let's see if we have the precipitation maps out on this yet. And we do, so that's good news. So latest latest European, not as strong, but it certainly has ticked towards the GFS. We're getting into Wednesday morning. Like I said, pretty large system. The precipitation field is well north. I wouldn't be surprised if showers are already Wednesday morning moving into areas, the coastal regions of Georgia, even the Carolinas. It's already raining on the eastern shores of Florida. And here we go. This rides over the Bahamas. Does kind of like what the GFS does. Inches southwest. Makes moving, it's about the same speed. This is going in 3-hour increments. And then it makes landfall sometime Thursday morning. So the timing is pretty close with the GFS and the European. Makes landfall as a sub 1,000 millibar low pressure, a 998. I would argue that maybe that is some kind of subtropical system. This would likely be Nicole. So this would make landfall Thursday morning, and then right over the peninsula, right over the middle, the central part of the peninsula of Florida, and then almost park right over Tampa Bay sometime Thursday evening, bring a lot of rain, gusty winds, and then it gets jolted and abruptly turns north and then northeast, brings a lot of heavy rains Friday afternoon. I really think Friday is just going to be a very wet day across the southeast, and then just kind of scrapes the coastline. This moves a little bit further west than the GFS, and then this heads on out, finally gets off the shoreline of Virginia and North Carolina, but not before bringing a good bit of rain here. I can't stress enough, guys, and we're about to show you this. This is going to, remember, these tropical systems, tropical, subtropical, whatever it may be, they turn like this. So this is going to bring, even if this is just a weak tropical system, this is going to bring a pretty intense onshore flow all the way up to South Carolina. You're going to have a lot of advisories, coastal flood advisories, things like that just going to start coming up here in the coming days. Canadian model, what does it do? Same kind of situation. We're getting into Wednesday morning. scrapes the northern Bahamas, but it's much further north. Makes landfall as a 988 millibar low pressure sometime Thursday afternoon. Starts turning this very quickly. Makes landfall, I would say, around St. Augustine or just south of Jacksonville. Starts to make the turn, grinds the Georgia coastline, grinds the South Carolina coastline into Friday, into Saturday morning, then heads on out to sea. Icon, kind of in the middle of everything, but it's a little bit further north, like the Canadian model. Makes landfall sometime Thursday morning as a 990 millibar low pressure. And then it begins to turn north, bringing a lot of rain, like I said, Friday into Georgia, into the Carolinas, all the way up to Virginia, all the way up to West Virginia. So we'll look at the ensembles from the GEFS. I mean, most members show an appreciable storm hitting Florida. Some of them are stronger. Some of these yellows you see here, I mean, that's getting to definitely close to hurricane status. But I would say that the operational GFS maybe is an outlier as far as the strength. Most of these, well, let's back it up here. We can't really say that. Let's see here. Most of these right into here, though, still haven't making landfall as a sub 1,000 millibar low pressure. But a lot of members get this pretty far out into the Gulf. But the GFS turns this, the actual operational GFS turns this much quicker. So what's steering this? And guys, I'm about to talk about impacts as far as winds and things like that. You see this red right here. We talked about this with Ian and just other tropical systems. The red is ridging. It's a ridge of high pressure. The blues is troughing or just low pressures in general. Troughing meaning cold front. So this is our system right here. We're just going to take a look at the GFS 500 millibar heights and anomalies here. So here we go. A ridge building here. You almost think, hey, is this going to sneak out and find this weakness? It doesn't. Ridge builds on top of it. Remember, you got a flow that rides around this ridge just like this, right? So it's going to yank this west. It builds on top of the storm, so it actually, with a ridging that's extending southwest or west-southwest here into Texas, this actually gets pushed, this system, a little bit southwest. So as it does, briefly move southwest, then it moves west in general. And then this is that trough, that cold front, which, by the way, is our pattern-changing cold front that's coming for everybody for the eastern U.S. almost, everybody. And as this happens, it starts to feel that weakness. You see this weakness, the white here, that's a weakness. And this ridging gets beat down by this trough, and then it feels completely, that trough either merges with it or either just pushes it out. There was some scenarios showing up that actually showed where this merged with it, and you got actually snowfall. In fact, I think there's a strong possibility that we're going to get some kind of snowfall from this tropical system. That's certainly possible, but it could be well up in southeast Canada. But we'll watch that, and we certainly need to watch if you're in Nantucket, Nova Scotia, things like that. You need to certainly, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia. You guys certainly need to watch this system. And, southern New England, you guys need to watch this too, because this could get really close to you guys. So we'll certainly watch the latest GFS as far as wind gust potential with this system. Here it comes. Remember, the GFS is more tropical in nature, so it has a pretty intense inner core with the GFS. And here it comes. As we're getting into Tuesday evening, you're already starting to feel some pretty strong onshore flow winds here for the entire eastern coastline of Florida, even into Georgia, the Carolinas. Just offshore, winds are gusting to probably 15 to 30 miles per hour. That's maybe not a lot, but it could be more than that. As we're getting into Wednesday morning, you got winds potentially gusting 30 to 40 miles per hour from Miami all the way up to Jacksonville. And then here comes the GFS. As you're getting into Wednesday afternoon, the winds start to pick up, and then the core moves in around Thursday morning, and the GFS actually has an eye wall with this. Pretty impressive for November standards, guys. If it was October, it wouldn't be near as rare. But it being the fact that this is likely going to make a landfall November 10th, that is pretty, you can almost say that that is rare status. That is certainly rare status. But it brings a pretty intense core into here between Melbourne and what is this, West Palm Beach. It brings a pretty intense core. Now, the winds are kicking all the way to Tampa Bay. Through Orlando, winds potentially gusting 25 to 40 miles per hour, 50 miles per hour. This would bring intense winds through the middle of the peninsula of Florida. The core, if the GFS is correct, guys, the core could bring 80 to 90, maybe 100 mile per hour winds in those areas I just mentioned between Melbourne and West Palm Beach. Just one run. We're still watching this. But I'm about to show you the European, which shows definitely a different scenario. As this moves through, it almost gets out into the Gulf of Mexico, begins to turn, and certainly loses some steam with being on land. So let's go on and back this up. Let's look at the European and what this shows. Certainly a different scenario. It has a massive northern wind field, though. This is the center of the storm, hardly where you see any winds. But look at this. This is a strong push of onshore winds right here. As this is moving like this, these are pretty strong winds coming in from the east. An easterly wind, and then you get probably a wind out the northeast for these areas. But in general, don't focus on wind direction. Just know that this is going to be coming from the east. So you're going to have a big-time onshore flow just due to the fact that the European, in general, is more subtropical. It's a more broader storm, and I would argue it's not necessarily. I would say that it's a worse scenario for more people, for coastal flooding. The GFS is certainly a much more significant scenario for a very smaller area, like I just showed you guys. But this would be an intense onshore flow. This is the center of the storm. Winds are kicking from probably Myrtle Beach to Charleston, Savannah, Jacksonville, all along basically 80% of the eastern shoreline of Florida, and winds gusting 40 to 50 miles per hour, bringing a lot of that ocean water into those inlets. And then the center of the storm finally moves over, brings gusty winds over the peninsula of Florida into South Georgia, and this rides up, brings a lot of gusty winds up to the southeast. I know I haven't showed the southeast much, guys. Trying to figure out Florida first, but we'll take a little bit more of a broader look. For example, this would be the European. How bad would the winds be? Well, it would bring, certainly, if the European scenario was to unfold, you would certainly already feel an uptick and some gusty conditions as early as Wednesday afternoon, all on the Carolinas and Georgia. This would be a pretty broad wind field, and then this would move through, and then the front starts to kick in. GFS, what would that show? What kind of scenario would the GFS show? Well, it'd be more tropical in nature, so yeah, sure, a lot of gusty winds, but maybe the worst stays offshore of the Carolinas. So as far as rainfall, what could we expect with this system? Because honestly, there's a lot of areas of the southeast that needs the rain. But here comes the system, brings 4, 5, 6 inches of rain for areas of Florida, anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rain for Jacksonville to maybe as much as 4 to 6 inches closer to Miami. But this is just the national blend of all models. And then we'll go through the whole entire duration of the event. National blend of all models, remember. So we're just trying to get a feel because most models are different as far as rainfall and winds. So there's probably going to be some kind of sharp cutoff in Georgia, maybe even the Carolinas, maybe all the way, maybe as far east as Columbia. But certainly some heavy rain for the entire eastern, basically the entire state of Florida, except the far western panhandle. And the coastal regions of Georgia, the Carolinas, all the way up through Virginia. We need to watch the Northeast, especially the closer you live to the coastal regions. Certainly need to pay attention to this. So that's it with the tropics, guys. We're going to continue to keep you guys updated because this is a big story. It's a developing story. And by the time some of you folks watch this, maybe this is a potential tropical cyclone. Maybe this is a depression. But it doesn't change anything of really what I'm saying at all. So just remember that. But one thing I also want to watch is we're going to take a look at the GFS here. Remember, landfalling tropical system. We just discussed this, but look at this big-time system. This is that cold front that begins to kind of unleash across the middle of the country that can bring a lot of cold air. And with it, in the beginning of it, you got a system that rides the trough and brings the first significant winter storm of the 2022 cold season for the Dakotas, areas of the Dakotas, Nebraska, areas of far eastern Montana. And this brings a significant winter storm for northern Minnesota too. And it could bring some wraparound moisture as far south as Minneapolis, maybe all the way down to Iowa. And then this trough moves through, kicks up a lot of those lake effect snow bands, and it could be a pretty vigorous lake effect snow band setup for almost all the Great Lakes. I'm meaning all of them, Superior, all of them, even the ones in New York State. This could be a big time lake effect snow setup this weekend. So we'll keep you guys updated on that too. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to discuss. But this is potential snowfall from the National Blend of All models for this system. I'm just showing the Dakotas and Nebraska for right now. Minneapolis right in here could 1 to 2 inches of snow, potentially with the backside snow. Most of this system is likely going to be rain, but this looks like a big snowstorm for these areas of the Dakotas, potentially areas of Nebraska, and then northern Minnesota, International Falls, for example. You guys could, get your first massive winter storm of the year. And this looks like a big one. Over 1 foot of snow, widespread for a lot of folks. We'll continue to keep you guys updated up here for sure. And then we're discussing right here a big pattern change. These are anomalies, basically the warmer colors you see on the screens, the pinks, the reds. Those are well above average temperatures. But look at this big cold front coming that's going to basically setting the stage for that powerful winter storm up there. But here you go. Well above average temperatures for most of the Great Lakes region, the Ohio Valley, the Deep South, just the eastern U.S. in general. This cold front moves through, right? This is getting into Friday. Here we go. We're getting all the way into Saturday morning. Look at this. Big time, well below average anomalies showing up. This could be widespread freezing. The first single-digit temperatures of the year is looking most likely. Especially with the areas that have snow cover, you guys will most likely get single-digit temperatures. But this could be some nasty cold air all the way down into Missouri. Maybe not down into the southern plains, but down into the heart of the country. Certainly could see some well below average temperatures. But we keep this going, guys, and we're getting into this weekend. We finally beat down these above average temperatures. And certainly look here. Below average temperatures set up in about 6 days, and they continue for the foreseeable future. Now we're starting to get into a territory that's unreliable, but in general, below average temperatures set up for the foreseeable future all the way through the next couple weeks of November. And if we look here, this is the National Weather Service, the Climate Prediction Center. The next 6 to 10 days, guys, let's see if there's an update with this. There's not. That's the day 11 through 15th time frame. Below average temperatures, well below average temperatures in the heart of the country, guys. So, and then we get into the 13th through the 19th time frame. I mean, you don't see this much, guys. The entire lower 48, not U.S. because Alaska is looking like it's going to be above average, but the entire lower 48, except a very small section of southern Florida, is predicted to be below average temperature wise for the 13th through the 19th time frame. So pretty impressive cold air coming up. It's actually something that kind of snuck up on me. I didn't see it coming. I had to dive into definitely some things, but very impressive setup. So there's a lot to discuss, a lot to break down here. Trying to see if we can get another update from the National Hurricane Center, but we're not. So back to making 2 videos a day tomorrow, guys. I'll keep you guys updated. Thank y'all for understanding. It's great to be back. Trying to get back to my routine. I haven't been able to work out in like 2.5 weeks, so I'm all out of routine with just being sick, vacation, but certainly ready to get back at it with you guys. So God bless all y'all. Y'all have a great rest of your weekend. God bless.